Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Outdoor Adventures on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. Today's show is brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. This season, Beck's is recognizing student athletes who are not just stars in athletics, but players who show heart in school, at work, in their communities, and in the ag industry. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. Chris Moffett is my guest this week on Outdoor Adventures, a hunter and a dog tracker. Chris, thanks for being here. How are you doing today, man?
Good, Brent. I appreciate you having me, bud.
Great to have you back on the show. I think we had you on last year, and archery season is underway, and for really, I think, most of the Midwest here, now that we're into October, and just a good time to catch up and talk about deer tracking and dog tracking and everything that is offered there and how that all works. But let's kind of get to know you again here, Chris, and just kind of your background in the outdoors and your growing up and hunting.
All right. I tell you, I started hunting. I'm going to kind of date myself here a little bit, but I started deer hunting probably about 10 years old. So looking at 35 plus years of deer hunting myself and chasing these things through the woods. And eventually it's one of them things where I ended up losing a deer of my own one point, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to start working a dog to where I can start finding my own deer, and it's just evolved very quickly since then.
Have you been able to get out and do any hunting so far this year, now that the archery season's open?
No, I haven't. I've been itching to get out this week, especially with this cold front rolling through, but no, I sure haven't yet.
Yeah, I had my first sit here this week on the 7th, and you and I are recording here on the 9th. I took a doe that night with my doe tag on public, and that was a really nice evening from the ground, 12-yard shot, pretty early in the evening too. It was about 5:45 or 5:50. She came by and had a nice shot on her, and I was eager to ask you, with your experience as a tracker, I thought I made just a perfect shot, and it was. Double lung, even clipped the heart, Chris, and that doe ran almost 150 yards before I found her.
It doesn't surprise me one bit. Heck, I've even seen where a heart shot deer went, gosh, what was that thing? Almost 3/4 mile. Those things, their will to live is just ridiculous, and they will go hard and fast as long as they possibly can.
Well, I was really excited that evening. Had my kids come out with me for the track. I had already found her and field dressed her, and then I went and picked them up, and we brought the deer cart out, and they helped me go get her and take her out of the timber and back to the vehicle, and that was just a really cool experience to share that with them. And took her to the processor, and we ended up deciding to donate the meat to the Help Us Stop Hunger program in Iowa, the HUSH program, to help feed people in need. So it was an awesome night all around, Chris.
That's great, man. I'm glad to hear that. Making the memories with the kids, especially, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was really meaningful, and I know a lot of people have been out already. A lot of people have already filling their tags. What advice would you pass along to hunters if they're out there, they make a shot, and maybe they think it was marginal and they're not quite sure what they should do?
So I would tell any hunter that if you think your shot is marginal, or there's a possibility of it being marginal, give yourself at least an hour before you even think about climbing down out of your tree and going to the shot site to kind of see what it looks like. If you know for a fact that the shot was back in the guts or back in the intestinal area, I would recommend not even going to look, honestly. That deer's going to need some time, and we've found that wait times are absolutely crucial to being able to locate that animal, whether you use a dog or not. Oftentimes we see where hunters go in too soon after the shot, whether they knew it was a marginal shot or not, and they'll bump that deer up, 150, 200 yards from where they shot it, and the deer's never to be found again because it either goes over to property that, can't be tracked on with the dog, or the thing just takes off into the next county. That fight or flight mode kicks in and they're gone. So wait times are absolutely crucial after shot.
How does the process work? If they reach out to a tracker, walk us through your process. I know you have a dog yourself. You have a lot of experience here. What all goes into your side of the equation?
So as soon as I get a call, I'm going to start asking all kinds of questions. One of the very first questions I'm going to ask is, one, have you spoken to another tracker? You know what? We are a pretty small and pretty tight network of trackers in the state of Iowa. Make sure that, you know, you haven't committed to another tracker prior to calling. But then I'm going to go into questions as far as blood. What's the blood look like? Do you have any pictures of it to be able to send me? I can tell a lot by what the blood looks like without even being boots on the ground. You know, I want to know deer's reaction. Did it head towards a neighboring property? Are you on public or private ground? Do you have permission for the dog to be on said private ground or the neighboring property if the deer possibly went over that other direction? There's going to be a slew of questions that any tracker should be asking over the phone prior to committing to bringing a dog out.
Now, one thing I did want to ask you about, you and I recording here on the 9th, this weekend for Iowa specifically, here I'm talking, the early muzzleloader season will be opening up. Do you ever take any calls for tracking when it comes to gun hunting?
Absolutely do. It tends to slow down a little bit. You know, obviously going to get a little bit more wounding rate with the archery season, but we still do, as a whole, take quite a few calls for both muzzleloader and during shotgun season as well.
Do you think it could be challenging for a hunter to kind of document what happens at the shot of a muzzleloader if there's any questions there because of, like, you know, the poof of smoke that can come out of the barrel?
Yep, absolutely. You know, when we get back to the questions and we're asking questions about kind of deer's reaction and how it acted, you know, when the shot hit, and that's one of them things where most people, unless they're shooting a smokeless muzzleloader, they're not going to be able to tell. And that's when it comes to, you know, having the dog in play. You know, a well-trained dog is going to pick up pretty quick and let us know whether the animal is mortally wounded or not.
How important is it to not disturb the blood trail if there's any questions? Because I'm curious, does that mess up things for your tracking dog?
It is very important. And yes, it can mess things up for us. Case in point, I went on track the other night. A gentleman had shot a buck with his bow. He went down to start looking for the deer. I don't know, it was like 35, maybe 40 minutes after he shot it. And he ended up bumping it up like 200 and some yards post shot. And he ended up walking all over the area prior to me getting down there. And I knew instantly, not only by the way the dog was acting and where she was taken, I could see boot prints walking around everywhere too. It makes it harder for the dog to work through that, because everywhere that the hunter will step, that deer has walked through, they're carrying that scent all around everywhere. So just like the other night, 3 separate times, my dog took me out in this big circle and took me right back to where we were parked. So I knew he had been walking around in there a lot, and it makes it tough for the dog to work through that.
It sounds strange to say, but I always am like, Chris, I hope I don't have to call you at all this year. I hope we don't have to talk to each other, because that means I've made a good hit on something. But unfortunately, there was one time that you had to help me with the track, and we didn't end up finding the buck that time, but we did our due diligence, and there was a lot that went on there. But was very impressed with how the dog worked. I'd never witnessed that process before. What goes into training a dog and getting them that efficient?
Oh gosh, I tell you, it's kind of a big debate amongst trackers how soon to start a dog. You know, whether they're just a little puppy or whether you wait for them to kind of get out of that adolescent stage at, you know, 1 to 2 years, where they kind of start calming down a little bit. But it starts early. Scent imprinting. You know, I had a litter of pups this last year, and before I sold any of my pups, I was already scent imprinting when it come to feed time. Out playing, it was with deer hides or, you know, dragging around playing with just get in their mind, that's playtime, that's fun time. I'm going to be able to chew on this. It plays a big role in it.
Yeah, it's just it's amazing if anybody ever gets a chance to see it, because they just take off, and it's just they beeline down it, and it's really incredible to watch.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I tell you, it's pretty amazing what a dog is actually capable of. I'll say a well-trained dog is capable of doing far more than we could ever fathom.
Have you ever had any like crazy, surprising stories where, man, like, I don't know, you tracked a deer like so long and in such a long ways, and it ended up that the shot was actually decent and a good hit?
Ooh, all the time.
Okay.
I mean, it's nothing to go over. It's nothing unusual to go a mile better on a track to be able to locate the animal. And a lot of those are going to be one, they were bumped up, be it by the hunter or maybe coyotes coming through, or if it was a far enough back shot in the intestines, they tend to go a little bit further, and you'll find them wandering off a little bit better distance than normal.
I just saw a video here online recently. These folks had shot a nice buck. It was a marginal hit. They waited till the next day and they picked up the track themselves. And then they got into this kind of wide open landscape where they were constantly doing kind of a big figure eight, back and forth. And eventually they called in a dog. And what they determined was that coyotes in the night had been pushing this buck around just constantly on its feet, and they ended up finding it that next day when they called in the dog, though.
Yeah. It's amazing how quick the coyotes will actually get on a wounded animal like that. But, you can definitely tell getting out, especially if you're going through, like right now, going through any kind of standing beans or in the CRP field where you can see the grass is all busted down on the track, and you're like, what in the world is going on here? And most of the time it's going to be coyotes getting after that animal.
Yeah. Well, how do people even get connected with a tracker, Chris? Is there like some sort of a website or a directory? I mean, how do they even get started on that?
So there's a few different ways. Here in Iowa, we have the Iowa Blood Trackers Association. We have a couple Facebook pages. We have a public and a private page. On those pages, every morning there's a key code sent out with the color pins and what they mean on the map. And there's a link to the map with that post every morning to be able to find one of our vetted association trackers here in the state. We have a lot of associators as well, that are part of our group that travel into Iowa and help us out.
With your tracking duties and everything you do there, maybe a dumb question, but how do you find time to hunt yourself?
I don't. I think last year I think I maybe set 3 times all year. It was a pretty good season last year, and sometimes you just got to turn the phone off if you really want to get out and go, because otherwise you're just going to be chasing dogs all season long.
What advice would you give people? I don't know if I can ask this, Chris, but what advice do you give hunters on as far as payment? Do you guys have like a rate or like an upfront charge? What's that look like?
So I tell you, most trackers are all going to have their own set rate. I think most are fairly close. Of course, our newer teams are going to be a little less expensive. They don't have the experience yet. They're trying to get these recoveries under their belt. We encourage them to either, just work for tips or, maybe a small fee for coming out. There's even trackers in the state that don't charge anything to come out and find your deer. Especially like if I'm within, I don't know, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of the house, I got a local guy that's shot a deer around here. I'm going to come help him out, maybe throw me a case of beer when I'm done. But, it's really not about the money. It's really not about the money. It's about trying to locate that animal. I believe we owe it to these animals to be able to find them and recover them.
We always hear for the longest time, when in doubt, just back out and go the next day. I think that's even more important in this case. If you think you'll need a dog, just back out completely and don't even go to the shot site.
Yep, absolutely. Best bet, if you even think it was marginal, back out, come out the next morning or, that evening. If you shot it in the morning, kind of check it out, see what the scenario looks like. And, even if you don't want to use a dog, call one of us, get a hold of one of your local tracker there. We're all more than willing to talk you through everything over the phone. It's one of those things where, in a season's time, we'll track more deer than most people have to actually try and physically track and locate in a lifetime. Really, most of us are getting well over 40 plus tracks a year, depending on the year. And, most people don't have to worry about trying to track that many deer down in their lifetime. So we've seen a lot, we've learned a lot. And if we can help you locate that deer without even ever having to bring a dog out, we're going to do it.
Chris, always good to talk to you, man. Do you mind throwing your phone number out there if people would like to reach out to you?
Sure. It's 515-808-1846. It's Chris Moffett with Triple M Hounds and Deer Tracking.
Perfect. Hey, thanks for coming back on again this year, man. And if you do get out to the stand, good luck. I hope you get something.
Hey, I appreciate it, Brent. Always a pleasure, bud.
Chris Moffett joining us here on Brownfield. And I'm Brent Barnett with the Outdoor Adventures Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Get outdoors and have a great weekend.